Hi, everyone. I wanted to send a quick greeting as we enter Easter weekend and also highlight just a few things as we close out our third week of class. So, I've checked in with your formation group leaders, and it sounds like your times together were so meaningful and that there was a lot to discuss and that you all engaged deeply. So, thank you for that engagement. And please make sure that if you did not attend your group, that you would follow up with your formation group leader for the asynchronous assignment in order to receive attendance points. Next, I'm aware that for some of you, these body practices are very new, and you're working through the difficulty of slowing down your body and your mind. Retreat and rest, they're subversive to our culture, right? You didn't know you were being subversive, did you? But in a culture that asks us to continually be active with our brains and our bodies, this can be a really difficult but important practice. So continue to be subversive and to lean into this. Others of you are grappling with how these psychological practices fit in a theological frame. If you're feeling that discomfort, I encourage you again to lean into this discomfort and wonder what God might have for you in this assignment. However, if the discomfort becomes too much, we want you to stretch but not to break. Contact me. We can always find a different kind of body practice for you to do. So just reach out to me and we can dialogue about that. For others of you, these practices are not new. And for you all, I'd like you to try and expand your practices to new contexts. If you're used to doing breathing practices or centering practices, try doing it perhaps at the park or standing in line or at work or dealing with a difficult client. Or perhaps try and lead someone else through the practice and see what that's like. I encourage you to continue to stretch yourself. So I wanted to recap our week on trauma. This is a really important week. They're all important weeks, but I feel that this one particularly has some information that I want to make sure you get as we move through the course. Obviously, this is an expansive subject, and we've only scratched the surface this week. But I encourage you to watch, especially to watch Dr. Cynthia Erickson's bite-sized videos on trauma and trauma-informed ministry, as this, I think, will specifically help some of you who would like to integrate this kind of work into your final project. And I will talk more about the final project next week. So a quick visual as you think about trauma and what it does in the body. And this is from my colleague, Dr. Kelsey Fitzgerald. So thanks, Kelsey, for this. So if you think of your brain like a fist, okay, where we store our memories, where we do our reasoning and our logic is in the cortex, right? My knuckles. But interestingly enough, this is not where trauma is stored in our body. When we experience trauma, it is stored deeper inside the brain, into the amygdala. So you can see why when we're trying to reason with someone in a traumatic situation or in grief, perhaps we say, "Why are you acting like this?" Or "Why don't you just get over it?" Or perhaps we give some sort of what we think is an important theological truth, that it's not actually hitting into the space where the trauma is actually stored. Trauma is deeply stored in the brain, in the amygdala. It's also where we store our emotions. So as we noted in the videos, trauma reminders affect the body in one of four ways. It's fight, flight, freeze, or a shutdown response. Now, why is your body doing this? It's a survival mode. Your body is going into survival mode. It's not a logical brain any longer. It's going more deeply into the brain. Now, psychologists have particular ways that they address this deeper embedded trauma through PTSD, trauma, psychological work. However, for us in this course, what is helpful for you to know is recognizing some of these signs as they appear for other people, and then being able to refer well to a psychologist, perhaps, who works with PTSD. And the last thing I will say here is I just want to make sure if any of you are feeling particularly triggered or traumatized by anything we've read or seen so far in the course, and you might need a little bit of help to think through what's the next support you might need, please contact me, contact your TA, Laura, or your formation group leader. We are willing and we are able to help you think about what next steps you might need to take as you think through some of the things that are coming up for you. finally, Amy, a theological reflection as we look towards tonight, Good Friday, and then go into Holy Saturday, Easter Sunday. We know that Jesus experienced bodily trauma at the hands of others in his crucifixion. God became one of us and endured suffering. Now, I mentioned this in a live chat a couple of weeks ago, but it strikes me as I think through the story, the story of the incredulous St. Thomas. You've probably heard lots of sermons about this, who needs to stick his finger in the side of the risen Christ. What's interesting, right, is that Jesus was resurrected from the dead into a body. Talk about embodiment. And that body had scars on it. Why would God choose to do this? Right, well, I offer, there's probably lots of ways to think about this, but I offer that it can give each of us hope. That we are images of a wounded healer, right? Who Christ, through his wounds, offered healing to us and to others. Now, people don't deserve trauma, or they don't need trauma to heal others. However, we can see that in the life and in the death and the resurrection of Jesus, that we can be taken up into this healing and wondrous act, and perhaps ourselves become wounded healers. So take that with you as you move into this Easter Sunday weekend, and we'll see you next week.